We're good? Okay. All right, everybody, welcome back to Sky Blue Podcast. I'm the estimator here at Sky Blue Restoration. We are on the line with Elementum Services CEO and owner, Oscar. Oscar, you want to
How
introduce
we
yourself
doing,
a little bit?
everybody?
All right, all right. Oscar, why don't you give us a little background about yourself? How long have you been in the industry for?
Been in the business over 25 years. Have an office in California and expanded over to Las Vegas about 6 years ago. So I've been around a long time.
That sounds good. That sounds good, man. So, have you been doing just restoration? You've been doing repairs, or do you stick to just the water damage? What do you do?
Yeah, well, we do pretty much the mitigation, remediation. So we'll work water damage, fire, mold. I have a tendency to go ahead and give out or refer out the actual reconstruction, such as my partner, Sky Blue. They've helped us on a couple of jobs, and you guys have helped us on a couple of jobs, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Most appreciated as well. So, Oscar, today we want to talk about a couple of things that contractors deal with on the everyday basis, but very few truly understand. One of the questions I want to ask, in your experience, what is the most misunderstood materials when it comes to drying after water damage?
What is one of the what? Tell me again, Aaron. Can you repeat that?
What is the most misunderstood material when it comes to drying after water damage?
Huh. I'm gonna say ceramic tile.
And why do you say that?
Well, it's been a tug of war with insurance adjusters for years in regards to if water can actually make itself underneath. When we're dealing with adjusters and telling them, hey, I have high moisture content on ceramic tile, my recommendation is to remove it. Obviously, the majority of the time, they're going to argue and say, nope, especially if it's actually on a slab of concrete, because their understanding is, well, concrete's always wet, so your moisture meters is basically giving you just false information. And that, I think the majority of the time is an incorrect answer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, I know a lot of times adjusters say that, hey, it's on a slab, it can't mold. However, they don't understand what can happen as far as the tiles, the grout start to get loose. The mastic underneath starts to get loose. They start to pop. Some of that stuff could show 6 months, 8 months down the road, and it's always. I understand it's always a kind of a tough dealing with the adjusters when it's trying to get those covered.
Right. And you know what? Again, not saying that there's not a possibility to dry, especially again, like in my area where I'm at, I'm in a desert area. So pretty much 99.9% of the homes out here are sitting on concrete slabs. So I understand. And again, I'm not saying that every single house that encounters some type of water damage on a ceramic tile floor means that we have to tear it up, right? One thing that I've told people in my years of experience is that our job is not to rip things out. As a water damage technician, I think people have that misconstrued. Our job as water damage technicians is to dry. And if there's materials that don't dry, because everything kind of dries on its own, right? As things are drying, regardless of the amount of equipment you have in a house or whatever property structure, commercial structure, whatever it is, things will dry faster than others. But again, if you can prove that the moisture content within the affected area is quite different to an unaffected area, and then you monitor those areas, there's possibility that you can dry those areas still. You can dry that flooring. You just got to learn to be creative, right?
Yeah, and what are some of the creative things you could do?
Well, a lot of us can attempt to dry direct. So basically, what the industry, or what I've seen in the industry, and we also do, we'll bubble. So we'll in basically encase the affected area, whether it be like say a living room, right? That tile is showing high moisture content versus the other parts of the home. We'll encase it in plastic, so we'll contain it. We'll grab a dehumidifier and push all that warm air that's coming in from the dehumidifier right into it, and we'll funnel it into that enclosed area.
Okay. So
With
in a
that,
sense, you're almost
what
creating
that
like a tent above the affected area.
that's it. Actually, that a lot of people will actually use that term, say, hey, go tent. That well, back in the days, they were even trying to attempt to tent laminate wood floors, but it seems that having that same method on tile floor has been effective. It has been, but that doesn't mean that it always is the case.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
No,
So
no.
have you ever encountered maybe ever trying to use a desiccant in a situation like that? Have you ever had any kind of, progress using or maybe better results using a desiccant instead of just regular, dehumidifier?
LGR. Well, again, I mean, yes, we can use a desiccant. I think just because of my experience, it gives you pretty much the same outcome.
Okay.
You get it? So my main thing is like, say for example, when you're dealing with the adjuster, no adjuster wants to hear, "Hey Oscar, so what are we doing with the tile?" Well, I'm going to recommend to rip it out. Well, he knows or she knows already that 10 out of 10 companies are going to recommend to rip out tile. Okay. But now the adjuster's thinking, okay, maybe this company doesn't know what to do, or just like anybody else, they're trying to, hike the price up and add more demo into, correct?
Correct.
But in reality, what I always say is that attempt to work with the adjuster, attempt to try to dry that flooring in place before we move on to the initial recommendation is to remove, because if the drying effect works, then there's no need for us to tear out anymore. But again, that is very seldom, at least in my experience.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So tile could definitely be one of those materials that become a little tricky when you're trying to dry out, water. Another one is another question I have for you. If you ever ran into this, have you ever ran into a material that may seem dry at the time, however, seems to become wet or get higher moisture readings after you remove drying equipment?
I think I have, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to recall in what case or what material we were dealing with. Um, and I think sometimes because, and I don't know if this could be multi-layered, maybe some type of wall system. Whether you have, for example, a wainscot, then on the wainscot you have, for example, drywall. Then behind the drywall you have some kind of plaster and lace system. I believe we've encountered in some occasions we still get like, hey, this is dry, or we've been drying it long enough. Why isn't it not drying? And it seems like the initial moisture content was high enough. There's a drop, then all of a sudden there's a big spike on it. And I really do think it could be due to, and I think the majority of the time it's going to be some type of metal lasing behind the plaster wall.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Have you gone through something like that before?
Well, we experienced some stuff like that. And I think basically it's because of the region we're in. I know you said you're more, the high desert, more Las Vegas. So you guys deal with a lot more desert atmospheres. Well, we're down here kind of by the coast more. So, we have a lot more humidity. We might wake up in the morning and have a big, fog from the marine layer coming in. So I think our natural moisture contents are a little different out here than what you may,
Of course.
encounter out there. So we run into it a little bit sometimes on like, drywall or carpet, stuff like that, but nothing too crazy.
Right. And that's another thing too. I think we lack in the industry, not only as restorers, but even the adjusters. And I'm going to say maybe the newer adjusters, because I mean, being honest, there's a lot of new adjusters in the industry right now.
Yeah, yeah,
So understanding the environment where the damage is at, wherever you're located, is going to play a big factor in regards to how you're going to go about or how fast you're going to be able to dry these areas down.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And that kind of leads me into my next question as well, to where drying in place. A lot of people, they tend to work with adjusters, and adjusters always want to try to save money on the repair, so they want to try to dry in place as much as possible. But what are the most common mistakes you see contractors make when they're trying to dry stuff in place?
Well, in regards to specific, we actually had a job not so long ago, and I'm going to say sometime last year towards the end of the year. And so the customer called us out for an inspection. We went out there and we gave our recommendations. We actually ended up meeting the adjuster on site. So the recommendation was pull carpet, pull the padding, just simple, very simple. At some point, the adjuster told the homeowner, I'm only going to pay for a certain amount of time. And I think a lot of them even argue nowadays. They just want to give you, I think the maximum is like 4 or 5 days, depending on the insurance carrier.
Yeah, yeah. You usually hear them want to cap equipment at 5 days normally.
Right. Other than that, you got to justify why you're still drying, which makes sense. That hasn't changed in all the years I've been in business. It hasn't changed, right? Fast forward, the homeowner basically says, okay, well, I don't want to pay anything out of my pocket, which happens a lot. We hear that a lot in a lot of scenarios out there. And at some point, we pulled our equipment. Now, we came back, and for whatever reason, that carpet and padding, since was never removed, we never attempted to float carpet, the padding was never removed, because that's what the adjuster told the homeowner that needed to be done. Never removed, because that's what the adjuster told. And pretty much, we had them sign off on our paperwork. Hey, our recommendations stand. We should move forward, removing carpet and pad, and making sure everything is complete. A couple months later, the homeowner then gets a contractor, just a independent contractor somewhere, to do some work at the house. The independent contractor basically says, hey, we got to rip out the carpet and the padding so we can get you new carpeting, whatever. And go and behold, they found mold. You there?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Did you freeze on me? Okay. And at that point, pretty much, as they rolled the carpet and padding back, lo and behold, they found mold. Well, wait a minute. If the carpet was dry, because 5 days of drying should have been sufficient enough to dry a carpet. Whether it's 100 square feet or a little bit more of 100 square feet, proper equipment, right. Now, if you don't remove the padding, we know the padding's holding all the water anyway. The least of the damage, our secondary damage on the carpet would have been pretty much staining, browning, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Right. You're pulling up all that moisture along with all that dust and sand. It's whatever settled within the carpet and the pad. But no, the mold was there. So the homeowner called us back out, pretty upset over the whole thing. Hey, what happened? You guys didn't do your job right. And this is because the contractor, who's not restoration or anything like that, basically said, hey, you got to call these guys back. They created mold, blah, 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 this and that. Okay, we go back to documentation. Documentation states, hey, we told you it was still slightly wet. We recommended remove, but you say you don't want to pay anymore because the insurance, blah, blah, blah. So we left it at that. There's nothing more we can do about it. But we took it one step further. We actually reached out to the adjuster.
Okay.
The initial adjuster that had told us, don't do this, don't do this. I'm the adjuster. I'll run the job. I'll tell you what to do. You follow my instructions, right? Eventually, the adjuster
was this a
didn't want to have
claim?
Maybe. So the adjuster didn't want to talk to us, didn't want to deal with us. So now we onboard our homeowner, and we tell the homeowner, you need to get the adjuster to come out here. We're going to meet the adjuster out here with you, the contractor, and everybody else that thinks that we did wrong. And that's actually what happened. So once the adjuster comes out, the adjuster's pretty much backtracking, saying, no, 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 I never said that. You're the professionals. Why should I tell you what to do? Blah, blah, blah. A short story, at the end of the day, we ended up doing additional work after months. We ended up finding further water damage from something else, which they were able to say, we'll cover it because we kind of messed up and it got taken care of. But we made the homeowner a believer. We made the contractor that she hired that made us look bad at the beginning a believer, who now is a referral, who now become a referral, for us.
Okay.
And, we went about taking care of it. So sometimes the silly recommendations like pull the carpet back, remove the padding, old school, float the carpet, maybe we'll dry the floating carpet because we're in a fast thing to rip out carpet and whatever. And again, we need to understand what our jobs are. But all that could have been easily managed out if we would have been allowed to do our jobs correctly.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I know we've run into a couple situations where, the adjusters like to be first on site, maybe even before the mitigation company, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
like to dictate how
Yeah.
the job goes, and never goes smoothly, I should say. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
another question for you. It kind of goes back to a little bit what you're saying about possibly, the plaster and having button board behind it. Is a lot of people tend to focus on the surface materials and don't necessarily get the whole build or the whole construction as a whole. Meaning, you'll get an adjuster put his meter to the drywall after a couple of days of drying and say, "Hey, it looks all dry. We're good to go." But who's to say that seal plate or that insulation on the inside of the wall is completely dry? What is your answer? What can you kind of come back to say to that?
Um, so, I'll be honest with you. I'm much older now in the industry. When I was younger, I actually would follow the adjusters to their cars because the adjusters will walk onto my job site. Excuse me, they walk onto my job site, Aaron, and this is true. Um, and they go in with their meters. Now, I don't want to. I don't want to get into the which meter is better than whose,
Right, right.
which is the best. And I know I've proven to find out which is a little bit more tech savvy in regards to what a meter is really pretty much there on the money. But in my case, we use Protometer, which is the brand now. It used to be General Electric years ago. It's funny because we've done videos on convention floors with Jorge and myself from Sky Blue, your boss there, and I kind of made small little commercials for these people. But in all my years, I've only used Protometer. Period. End of story.
Yeah, Survey
Um,
Master Protometer. That's typically the standard industry
that's
meter
it.
you want to use.
Okay. So that's what I use. That's what I train my technicians with. Simple. Again, adjusters will come in, and as far as I know, they shouldn't even be carrying meters. It's not their jobs to be technicians. But
Correct.
I've had those
Correct.
encounters again earlier in my years where adjusters come in and say, "Oh, look, this is dry, and this is dry, and this is dry," and I'm like, "It's impossible. I just barely got in yesterday. We just started mitigation yesterday. How is it that this is all dry?" Okay. Again, not getting into debate about whose meter, whatever, right? But who is the technician on the job? So in reality, as a technician on the job, Aaron, it's my meter because that's what I use. That's going to dictate the tone of what is and what is not.
Correct.
You get
Well, at
what
the
I'm
end of the
saying?
day,
So you said?
no, I'm so sorry. Well, I'm just saying at the end of the day, I mean, we're the ones liable. We're the ones who's supposed to warrant our work, right? So they're there to adjust the claims. We're the ones who's supposed to be there actually, like you said, being the techs.
That's it. Look, at the end of the day, the judge doesn't care if the insurance said this, what he's going to say. Well, who's the professional here?
Correct.
And what devices do you use? And what's your method? And what's this? And what's that? You're going to have to answer. You're not going to say what the insurance adjuster said. That's not going to work.
That's not going to go
And in
very far.
reality, In reality, it happens. Now, I haven't chased any adjusters anytime soon. And that's a whole talking about adjusters is a whole different. We can conversate another day on that because I can give you my opinion. But again, when I was younger, I would chase them. I would chase them out the door and let them know. Hey, first of all, it's not cool that you're trying to make me look dumb because I'm not your preferred vendor. Second of all, there should be no debate in regards to the meters, this and that, because the main objective here is to make sure that my customer, your insured, is taken care of. That's the objective. But yes, having those adjusters that think they're technicians, that know what they're doing. And listen, back in the days when I was a greenhorn and I would deal with these seniority card adjusters, because the first thing out of their mouth is, Oscar, I've been doing this 40 years before you even existed. You know what my answer was, Aaron?
What's that?
Ask me what my answer was to these guys.
What's that?
You should know better. So, obviously I miss a lot of those guys now, being a little bit of a dinosaur myself in the industry, I think. But, it's become a challenge dealing with the younger adjusters because, in all due honesty, they don't know. And you know how I know that they don't know is because they're overwhelmed. So their turnaround or their turnout rate for a lot of these carriers hiring adjusters is terrible.
Yeah.
Adjuster comes in, adjusters come in, you train them for whatever, I don't know, State Farm or somebody, and I don't know why I mentioned State Farm, but that's a typo. They do 6-month training, they throw them out to the field, and all they do is pretty much AI everything. Because when they talk to you, they don't want to talk to you in person. They'll take their measurements, and then they'll say, Oscar, I'll call you if I have any questions. And that's when the AI takes over. So, again, that's what I think I've encountered in the industry.
Yeah, and I got another quick small question for you on that. I know how you said you've been around for a long time. Now, before you said you used to deal with your adjusters a lot more directly, and you said something right now that's it seems like the insurance company or the industry's kind of changing to or shifting to a little bit. There's all these, third-party companies that come in and audit our estimates. It seems like all these carriers are having a TPA or a third party coming in and looking at our estimates to try to, basically just break them down, see how much money they could save off of them. And they're, like you said, people that sit in an office or just run it through the AI system and basically just try to, cut our bills. What's your feelings on that?
I mean, it's gotten worse, probably since COVID.
Okay.
It's funny. I'm actually an independent contractor. I'm not a preferred vendor. And I'm not going to knock preferred vendors. I've always said it for many years. In the industry, there's good and bad, whether they're preferred or independent. There really is. And that's a whole topic too, but that is very sensitive topic. But it's a disaster. So here's my quick outlook. We have a job going on that we started a week ago.
Okay.
My experience says I should be able to drive this house down in about 6 days. And 6 days because there's factors. The biggest factor is the human factor, which adjusters don't understand. Okay? We got to get them moved out, got to get pack outs, got to do this. So now, the biggest trend is they all have pets, right? Everybody's trying to figure out, where am I going to take my pet?
Yeah.
My pet parrot, my parakeet, my monkey. I have a llama I got to take with me. Where are you going to house me? All that holds up. So I never understood, if the house floods out right now, there's a lot of companies that come in and drop off 100 pieces of equipment. How does the customer still live in the house? Again, different topic, different time. But here's my thing, is that at the end of the day, all these insurance companies do, they argue all that. That 7-day or 6-day dryout became a 14-day dryout, a 16-day dryout, right? Yes, they'll undercut me. Well, Oscar, I'm not going to pay you 18 days of drying. Well, I can prove it was still wet. You're telling me the whole house was wet? No, I never said that. I said I can prove that the house was still wet. That means specific areas were still there, so that warrants equipment still running. Well, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? Here's the biggest answer. Because my customer, the homeowner, you're insured, is waiting on you to approve yes or no. And while you guys are dilly-dallying around, not calling me back, not calling your insured back, because it's become a problem, now I'm charging you for 18 days of drying. If you answer your phone, back in the days, AAA, Mercury, USAA were pretty much the only companies that I guaranteed you within 48 hours they were actually on property.
That's true. I will say AAA is very big on being on site right away.
Yeah,
State Farm, I don't know as much. USAA nowadays, USAA, I don't really mind working with. They're usually a pretty easier
pretty
carrier to
good.
work with, I say.
Yeah, uh huh. But my thing of it is here, Aaron, is that in reality they're turning these jobs into bigger. So they're going to argue for all this, hey, and really if you look at it, what are they badgering you over? PPE, your
Yeah,
microbial spray down.
yeah,
Dude,
cleaning.
really? You're trying to remove chump change? It's the only way. So in reality, the way I look at it now, if we're justified, I'll fight a company. But listen, at the end of the day, just be honest with Mr. and Mrs. Adjuster. Look, if you want a discount, this is what I'm going to do for you. And that's what I kind of trained my girls in the office to say, when you're talking with an adjuster, let's just get down to the nitty gritty so you can pay us now. Because we're wasting too much time going back and forth. The biggest back and forth they're in right now is AI.
Yeah,
Forget it when they send it to Segway or whoever the other auditors are, but
yeah,
they're AI because the list is there. And if the button is not pressed, then it won't move. So they're stuck saying, hey, I need this, I need this. No. Yeah, the adjuster group it's got to get better.
yeah. No, I completely hear you. Completely hear on that, and that kind of leads into another one of my questions I was going to ask. You know, kind of how you're saying, how you were mentioning about how you could prove to that adjuster that it was still wet. I mean, we can't stress this enough to everybody I talk to in the industry, but I want to hear it from you a little bit. How big is being able to justify all of this when it comes to documentation? Like, I always stress to everybody, documentation is 100% needed on every single little thing. We can't tell our guys enough to take pictures of every single thing they do, so that way we can prove it to these insurance adjusters.
Dude, it's the biggest thing. It's not only CYA, because trust me, it's CYA on your part. Once we put a step into someone's property, Aaron, you know this, we're liable. We are then responsible for all or anything that happens during that time that we're on that property. It's the biggest thing. Okay, but here's the kicker. But you can never have enough pictures. We make a
Yeah,
joke. I make a joke because when I first started taking pictures in the industry, this is how green I am. We still had the little flat cameras with the little ice cubes on top, which were the
yeah,
flash. You probably don't, I don't know if you know that. You're pretty young, dude, but that's what we had. But a lot of those are being lost. So now we're turning around doing disposable cameras that we could drop off at the local CVS or Thrifties or whatever to get developed. And we had 30 of just different photos right throughout the job.
yeah,
But there was always that one picture that made the difference. So nowadays, trust me, when they're asking, well, you're doing a pack out. How many people? You're charging me for 12 people. This job should have been.
no. Sorry, you kind of cut out there a little bit, Oscar. Sorry, I think we got a little bit of a disconnection on the audio right there, Oscar. Okay, there you are. There you are. We're back. Yeah, like I said, sorry, missed a little bit on that, but I mean, can't stress enough about how much documentation is needed on every single little thing. All right. So what else? I wanted to ask you. I don't know how much experience you have dealing with. I don't know how much they have them in the high desert in Vegas dealing with mobile homes, pre manufactured homes. He said he can't hear us. Can you hear us now, Oscar? So we'll be back after these commercials. Everything's good on one end, right? Hey, Oscar, you mind trying disconnecting and reconnecting real quick? Hey, can you kick him and then re-add him?
Can you hear me?
There you are.
I figured for some odd reason the zombie apocalypse was here and we had lost signal.
I don't know what happened. At least we got you back.
Where do we leave off, Aaron?
I think I don't know. We're talking about documentation, but I think we got a pretty good understanding on that. The next question I asked is we've recently been dealing with a lot of pre-manufactured homes, mobile homes. Was wondering if you have any experience in that.
We do. We actually work. So if we don't, if it's not a slab house up in the desert, it's a manufactured home.
Okay.
It really is.
And when it comes to manufactured homes, the biggest thing we run into trying to explain to the adjusters is typically the subfloor they use. It's not a good solid ply.
No, and the majority of these mobile homes or manufactured homes are pretty much old. They're older. You have subfloor that pretty much is cardboard.
Yeah, they use particle board subfloors, and when they get wet, they just warp and expand like crazy.
So what's the issue? Normally, when we get something like that, that is gone. It's cut out.
Yeah, I guess we've ran into the issues with trying to get adjusters to understand and agree to, hey, the subfloor underneath the cabinet's wet, it's swollen. We have to rip out these
Yep.
cabinets to be able to rip out that subfloor. And we've been getting into a lot of pushback saying, well, why do you have to do that? Like I said, around our area, we don't deal with a whole lot of those.
Right.
And like I said, trying to get the adjusters in our region to understand that's been a little bit of a difficult.
I don't think we've never had. I don't think we've ever had any pushback in regards to that. Um, Obviously, the subfloor's got to come out because, believe it or not, even though the manufactured home has a steel frame, there's still wood components in there. There's structural wood components within that steel frame that you need to dry. So the subfloor is just a moisture barrier, just like anything else. We've really never had any issue with that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right. One other question I had for you is kind of for people getting into the industry a little bit as well too. They might have been contractors. They might know how to do work, but trying to figure out the business side of it. What is the biggest difference of coming into this type of industry, already knowing how to do the work, but trying to actually start doing the business side of it? Is there any kind of tips, anything you kind of provide for people trying to get into it, making their own, starting their own company out rather than just doing the work, but trying to actually, create an actual company to be able to grow and become a successful restoration company.
Um, you know what, my biggest tip would be is if you can find a mentor, find a mentor.
Okay.
It's hard just like any industry because at the end of the day, Aaron, we're all competitors. We really are. I don't want you taking my money just like you don't want me taking your money, right? Um,
Hate to
but
say it, but that is true.
yeah. I mean, we're in business for money. That's the bottom line. We're in business to make money. If anybody ever tells you something different, it's incorrect. What we do with our money once we are in the business making money, then that's different. Take care of our family. I'm gonna go buy my yacht. I want a helicopter. I want this. Okay, that's different. But um, get a mentor. I think that if I had a mentor, um, in my times when I started the business, I'd probably be much more further with what my game plan is. Um, can you see me? Because I see myself. I don't even see a visual here. I can only hear.
We're
Can
we're
you see
seeing
me?
black, but hey, at least we can hear you.
Okay. That's the main thing, right? So get a mentor if you can. Jorge from Sky Blue has done something very good, and it's something that him and I have discussed because we, even though we're competitors, and I say this all the time, people meet us. Oh, what do you guys do? Sometimes they think that we work on for the same company. To be honest with you, and then I said, no, he owns Sky Blue, I own Elementa. He's like, so you guys are competitors? I go, yeah, we are. I mean, technically we are competitors, but much more, we've become very good friends. As a matter of fact, great friends. To be honest with you, we don't mind sharing. So every big blue moon, Aaron, just like I stated before, you might find that person that's willing to take you under the wing
Yeah.
or just kind of put you in the right direction. In regards to doing the job, honestly, do the job. Find a small job out there that you can do and get to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't learn if you don't make mistakes. So you're gonna make mistakes. Hopefully, it won't be a mistake that's gonna cost you money, right? We don't want to get into those costly mistakes. But I would say something I just noticed a couple of months ago, and I giving Jorge props over at Sky Blue. I know he went over to he flew, I think, to Washington to help out a fellow, company out there. I think it's Alpha Restorations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, good people.
And yeah, good people. That's awesome. How many more people that you've probably been employed by or you've come across that are going to be willing to come out to your place of business and help you at least walk a job
Yeah, no, like
and for free?
not very, yeah, not very many. I applaud George for doing that. And that's kind of what the question was all
Yeah,
about. I think people are tired of just doing the work. They're trying to actually understand the business side of it more and trying to, you know, become the restoration, trying to become their own boss, and so to say, right?
yeah. I've mentored companies in my years with acquaintances that will reach out, and that's the funny part because it's funny that you don't talk to me for years, then all of a sudden I get this phone call and it says such and such, and I'm like, man, I haven't talked to that guy since for years. Hey, well, what's going on? How you doing? I'm doing great. What's up? Hey, man, you know what? I remember that you did this, and how's it going? Whatever. Now I'm thinking I want to do my own thing. Do you have any pointers? Yeah, bro. Of course I have some pointers. You know what I mean? So again, a dime a dozen. You're probably not gonna find people either like myself to toot my own horn or like Jorge that are just willing to point you in the right direction. Because again, technically we all are competitors. You know what I mean? But we're all chasing the same thing. I don't mind mentoring any company as long as it's getting done correctly. You know what I mean? Because we know that in our industry, there's a lot of shady people. There's a lot of shady companies. So the last thing
Yeah.
I want to do is mentor a shady person, and they're going to turn around and say, well, I learned all this from Oscar over at Elementum. No. For me, my name in the industry is everything. You get it? So it doesn't matter if I'm here in California or I'm in Nevada or I'm in Colorado or Kansas. My name is the credit in the industry. But I applaud Jorge, by all means, anybody that's listening or watching this live here, find a mentor. Now, understand too that I'm not there to make your company for you, because that means that I'm being taken away from my company, right? Which is going to cost me time and money. So if
Correct.
you want to discuss that, then we can sit down, we can talk numbers and all that, because I hate to say it, time is money. It's valuable, right? But if you want to reach out to Jorge or myself, and there's a couple other people within the group that we know, we're always willing to point people in the right direction, man. You know what I mean? Maybe, you know what? I always look at it, maybe we're just dumb business people, right? We're going to tell everybody how to do the job for free.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, like I said, I applaud definitely Jorge and yourself for willing to help people understand the industry more, especially hardworking people that are worked as the worker for years and trying to better themselves, and it's always good running across people like that. One last question I have for you: what is a tip, or what do you think is some of the things that restoration companies, where do they leave money on the table, so to say? Do you have any kind of recommendations for them to do to always try to look out for, to where they can try to maximize the profits on these mitigation estimates?
Yes, my biggest pointer for that is to study with you, Aaron. I believe that obviously, because the majority of us use Xactimate, I believe there's another program. What is it?
Stability.
Serendipity, Symbillity. Serendipity was a movie, right? So my thing is this. You know what? Obviously, because you're an expert in understanding how these things work. It's funny because even in the years that I've been in business, that I believe to myself that I'm successful, here comes Jorge a couple of years back, and we crossed paths. And this is true, and this is what happens. We cross paths, and then we start talking, right? We share a meal, we share a drink, we share opinions, we share, hey, well, how do you do this in your company? Well, how do you do that? And then when the question comes up, well, yeah, so this job was $14,000. $14,000, Oscar, but I walked the job with you because we happen to be hanging out. Because, dude, I would have probably made, this is probably about, you're leaving about $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 more on here. Really? Why do you say that? Well, did you charge for this? Did you charge for that? Things that we don't charge for. Things as silly as electrical outlet covers or extension cords or I don't know, something small like that that the pennies add up.
Yeah.
So again, my advice is to, have someone talk to you for a couple of pointers because you've actually even helped my girls out in the office. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have. I mean,
Okay. And
not saying
as the
very much,
owner of
but
the
I think
company,
they get the gist of it. There was just a couple little things.
and that's it. And you know what, Aaron? Again, thank you for doing that. I don't know if it's Jorge telling you better do it because that's my buddy Oscar, or because you're just a good guy that said, you know what, Elementum's a good company. It's kind of like a good partnership between my boss and the boss over there, and why not, right? So I
Maybe
do
a
want
little
to
bit
tell
of
you thank
both.
you. I
Maybe a
really
little
do
bit of
appreciate
both. Huh?
that.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
No, I
Definitely one of the
appreciate
things
it.
I could always say is, things that you use every single day that you think that people beat into your mind that say, hey, these are just consumables that you got to use or industry standard consumables, drop cloths, they're reusable. You throw those down, take a picture, you use a couple drop cloths each job. That's a few $100 extra on each single job, and that adds up after the years,
Yeah, yeah.
So little
And
stuff
it
like
goes back
that.
to Aaron. I'm sorry about that. It goes back to exactly the same thing. Listen, at the end of the day, the insurance carriers are going to beat you up. They're going to beat you up, right? They want to not pay for that $19 charge for microbial or the $20 for 100 outlets. I get it. But it's okay because now it's more money in the pot, legit money in the pot. It's not something you're just trying to invent, right? So it goes
Exactly.
back to documentation, photo documentation that you did it, and they'll argue over it. But hey, pennies on the dollars, you're still making money as a business, and you're still taking care of the customer correctly.
Exactly. Well, Oscar, I appreciate you talking to me today. Had a couple little technical difficulties there. However, we'll get those worked out next time we talk, and maybe one day we'll get in the
Right.
same room together and sit down. Sound good?
We will. I told Jorge I'm trying to see if I can get in there. Hopefully by the end of the month, if not the beginning of next month, and we can sit down and do a video. Then you guys can go ahead and post and load it up.
There you go, good sir. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today, Oscar. Best of luck to you in Elementum, and if you ever need anything else, we're here for you. Just reach out.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you, Jorge. Jorge, my boy. And obviously, all those that are connected with Sky Blue that are out there talking to you or talking to Jorge, it's a good thing. Keep it up.
Will do, Oscar. Thank you again, sir.
You have a good one now. Thank you, guys.
Bye.